welcome to the Secret Art of Business. And today I am very excited to have my very dear friend, Mary Korn, on because, we are kind of in similar businesses, but you have gone down a path that is just so great. And welcome. Thank you so much for doing this.
Absolutely.
Great. Mary, can you tell us a little bit about your business, about Pearl Interactive Network?
Yes. So we're what's called a for-profit social enterprise. I get government contact center contracts, and we're a for-profit social enterprise because from the day we started, we always gave hiring priorities to people with barriers to work, disabled vets, veterans, military spouses, people with disabilities, and people living in geographically challenged areas. And when COVID happened, suddenly the whole call center world went virtual, and I couldn't have asked for anything better because it really helped explode our business. So we have about 1,100 employees in 29 states, and they're good jobs that we're giving. They're government jobs, so they're typically year after year jobs, and we give benefits.
Oh,
And,
yes.
and career pathways so that there's growth.
Yes. And I mean, I think, that is, granted it's a business, but it's also a very noble cause helping many of these people that would not normally have a chance or an opportunity to have a full-time job with benefits in a way that doesn't interfere with their disabilities.
Yes. And when you remove the barrier of transportation and you remove the barrier of childcare,
Oh, yeah.
you are leaving an opportunity for people in all kinds of circumstances that would be struggling to pay their bills.
And the pandemic showed all of us what some of those barriers are like because we were forced
Oh,
into situations to work from home and not have childcare and everything else. So we got a little taste of what some people just deal with every day, regardless
yes,
of what's going on
yes.
in the world.
True story.
How did you get into this?
I'm really glad you asked because, Catherine, that I actually interviewed you for a book that I'm doing, and so
Yes.
you're going to ask me the question about what do I do for fun. I've been writing this book, and I've been speaking about the fact that, uh, long story short, I was fired from a job as a single mom, completely lost, could not find a job, and through okay, so we're going to talk about some woo-woo stuff, but I was taking a walk down an alley and I was praying really hard to God. And I said, I am so lost. I am on my knees. I beg you, help me
Hmm.
figure this out because I don't know how I'm going to pay my bills. I don't know how I'm going to make ends meet. I need some help here. And I actually heard a whisper, and the whisper was contact medical associations. So I called medical associations not knowing what I was doing, and I asked for informational interviews. And I asked, so these informational interviews is when you schedule to meet with someone who's doing something that you think you want to be doing, and all you're asking is for 20 minutes to understand what they do so you could understand how you could segue your skills. And it was through these informational interviews, I got one medical association, and I started getting more and more medical associations. But what I discovered was I couldn't get employees to stay. And that's when I started hiring people with severe disabilities, quadriplegics, people who are quadriplegic, paraplegic, cancer, you name the condition, disabled vets. And what I discovered is when you hire people with barriers, they stay. And then I went to this amazing conference for women business owners, and the conference was on the gift of government contracts as a venue for providing good jobs,
Hmm.
jobs that have stability and jobs that have competitive wages and benefits. So, in answer to your question, I started it out of the most fearful time of my life. And many of the lessons I learned is sometimes what seems to be the worst time in your life can turn out to be the best.
Oh my
And I
gosh.
know I know your story that you
Yes, you
shared with
do.
me
I
parallels that exactly.
Yeah. I love that it came in a whisper for you, and I
Yes,
love that that whisper was so specific. And I
yes,
love that you listened because people that are in positions like yourself and mine, where you own a business and it does pretty good. Um, they think a lot of luck is involved, and I'm not going to say that luck is necessarily not there, but I always look at luck as more of a recognizing of the opportunities. And sometimes people think that you have to fall into it, but it is about the listening and kind of crafting something around that is what those are the opportunities that to look for. And if you're not listening, if you're not kind of like you said, just in a quiet moment, you're going to miss some great opportunities that may lead you to something that's even greater. So I love that you shared that so much. That is just such a perfect story. So thank you for that.
absolutely. You're welcome.
Um, and Pearl has done amazing. But one thing that I've noticed too, as we're backing up into your life a little bit, that you also have a fair amount of experience in marketing as well. So that means you are really a creative person. That's which is why I wanted to have you on the podcast because
Yeah.
you cannot be in marketing and not be creative in some regard. So what did you do as a kid that was really fun and creative that kind of started you down a path of marketing?
Uh, I loved art and I loved painting and
Mm-hmm.
I still do. And we have a grandson and he loves to paint with me and that gives me like immense joy. Both my daughters are artists and I think it was because when they were little, we used to sit around the table and do artwork together.
I love that. I love that.
And I
And
know you like to paint too.
I do. And I have a degree in art and I got lost in my own path. I started down marketing and then I started this business, but now I'm back to painting. So I, I love that it's back. I feel like I've kind of left a part of me behind.
Yeah,
So I went back and got her and we're painting again.
good. And it's so joyous because
It is
it's
so
unlike
joyous. It
it's
really
not
is.
business. It's just joy.
It is. And are you painting for joy now, or are you just painting like? Are you painting with your daughters at all, or your grandchild, or are you
Uh,
doing any of
I,
that?
I so this is an excuse because there are things that
That's
I'm just
okay.
dying to do. There are things I'm dying to do, which is I'd like to do a lot more painting. But one thing that's fascinating is when you paint with a 4-year-old, there's an art to putting yourself in the brain of a 4-year-old because I don't know about you, Catherine, but I always worry that when I do my artwork, oh, it's not good enough. It's just not
Yeah.
good enough. And a 4-year-old paints like, who cares?
Right.
Who cares? This is what I'm doing. So what if you don't like it? I just love that joy and the awe of painting side by side a 4-year-old
I
because
love that.
it brings out the inner 4-year-old.
Absolutely, absolutely. And we need, and I always encourage people too, is we're not really sure what you want to do, sit next to a kid and see what they're doing because they're just doing things to kind of get it out of them. And painting is one of them.
Yeah,
And as you were telling that story, I was thinking about some of the best pieces that I've done. Some of my most favorite things are when I had no idea what I wanted to do. When I got really focused, I'm like, okay, this has got to be good. And I get really picky. It never turns out, but I'm like, if I feel something and I have to get it out of me, it's always the best pieces that I've done. So I think there's a
yeah,
lot of great information in just that. Just kind of get down to that 4-year-old and start kicking it out.
yeah, totally. I'm there.
Did you do other things besides painting, or were you crafty in general?
I No, but Catherine, interestingly enough, when we talk about things I do for fun, you there's an organization town called Center for New Directions,
Yes.
and I taught a course there called Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway, and it's just out of passion and joy. And I know you and I are both really committed to helping women business owners any way
Hmm.
we can.
Right.
So then they asked me to do a life mission workshop, which I just did. And Catherine, it was so joyous working through an internal excavation of what were the things that brought joy to the people in my workshop. And there was one woman who was like a prominent banker in town, and she was very poor growing up. And she shared that the greatest joy in her life was playing Monopoly with her
Oh, I love it.
grandfather.
I
And
love it.
how if you tap into what give, and this taps into your question, when you tap into what gave you great joy as a child,
Hmm.
those are keys to finding your passion.
Absolutely. And that's what this podcast is all about. And I want people to really do that, that digging to get to where that kid was and just say, what? I mean, before someone told you to get to work, before you were given chores, before you were, or maybe you were given chores at a young age. I shouldn't
Yeah.
necessarily say that because we were. But before you were really told to buckle down, what did you do that was incredibly fun and joyous and you could just, you were living your best life at that time? And sometimes it is the smallest things like playing a game or I mean, some people were just like, I used to love to collect rocks or I used to, make mud
Yeah.
pies or I mean, it's super simple stuff, but it was so expressive and it just made you, maybe it was tactile, maybe it was, just, going to the art museum as a kid or something, but it's always something that was just pure joy for you. And it's might be just have been a moment. It might have been a period of your life, but that's just
Yeah.
something to tap back into that if you can't weave it into your job, you can do it in your spare time if you can
Right.
possibly do that.
So, Catherine, one experience that had a lifelong impact on me was my father. I was born in Germany, and my father never came here. And my father had all kinds of issues. And so, on a comical note, he used to run a business of selling men's clothing at these big festivals in Germany.
Mm-hmm.
And he would take me with him. Well, in the middle of the day, he would take a nap at the bottom of on the floor of the booth, and he would leave. And I was 8 years old. And Catherine, he left me in charge of sales. So I had these big farmers come up, and I would take a tape measure and I would measure them, and I would do the sale from beginning to end. My father would wake up, and there would be all this money in his. He had this metal box that he kept the
Uh-huh.
money in. And Catherine, that was so formative for me because I loved the art of the sale. And that
Yeah.
has had such a huge impact because um, when I'm not running the day to day business, I'm selling. And I know you do too.
Right, right. There's just something
You're,
about,
you're,
offering some help to somebody, like you have a need. I think I can help you. And let's walk through the
yeah,
process. There's just something very fun about that,
yeah. But
especially when you can solve
so
it.
yes, but I think you and I are both tapping into what was it about our childhood that was so
Mhm.
formative. And I remember you telling me you won an art contest
I
and you got to
did.
buy supplies. You got to buy supplies.
I
And
did.
that was such a validation that,
Oh my God. Yeah, that was the
yeah.
game changer. And then that's when I started really stepping in to who I was. And the other thing that I have not mentioned is when I was younger, because I knew I could draw now. People were told me that I could draw. I entered that contest that gosh, I want to say it's Kellogg, but I'm hoping I'm right with that. But they were giving away Schwinn bikes for the best drawings.
Oh,
And I won a bike, which was crazy.
wow.
Yeah. So I mean,
Wow.
I
Talk
was like,
about
this is
validation.
legit.
Yeah. Yeah. So Catherine, the process of teaching this course on finding your life mission, it caused me to, because the whole course is about an internal excavation
Yes.
at different periods of your life. What
I
were
love that too.
outstanding moments of recognition, of pure joy?
Yeah. I love that.
Uh,
I love that.
Yeah.
And just so people are aware, when you're talking about new directions, that is people that are in need of a new direction. They might have gone down a path that they're less than happy with, we'll say, and they just need a little direction to get back out. So I'm so excited that you're doing that. It's a great program.
Oh, it was awesome. It was awesome.
So
But
can
yeah,
I think that's one of the things that you do for fun then now is to go through these processes with people to kind of redirect them, based on your own experience too, because you kind of got yourself down an alley, if you will, and were able to kind of turn yourself around and get in the right direction.
Catherine, what brings me joy, just like what brings you joy, when you talked about the joy of selling, it's helping people find answers. My greatest joy is using my personal journey in whatever form that is, in terms of helping people find their way. I mean,
Yes.
for years, I taught this course on feeling fear and doing it anyway. And when the Center for New Directions asked me to do, find your life purpose, I just felt I was being tapped on the shoulder. So it brings me great joy as to volunteer, to share my stories, share services that help people find that aha moment.
Right. And Mary, you're a very giving person. What other organizations have you worked with?
Probably all those same ones you do. Uh,
Name
we,
one.
well, the Women's Small Business Accelerator
Yes.
has my heart.
Uh-huh.
I've had the gift of getting to mentor some incredible business women
Yeah.
there. So that has just been a pure joy. I've been active with political lobbying because a lot of women don't know that what happens in your state government could absolutely have an impact. I've been working with the Ohio Women's Coalition, which you're a part of, and the NABO Public Policy, National Association of Women Business Owners. Catherine, I think you were with me when we lobbied the governor.
Yes. Yes, we were.
Right.
We were
So
together for that.
through our collective work, we've helped realize, last time I saw $20 million in loans, low interest loans to women and minority business owners. So I think that we're kindred souls and just passionately loving to help women find their way, because it wasn't easy for us.
No, no. And I think sometimes when you walk through that fire, you do get, a little scarred and it's a little easier to kind of step into that space. And I don't know how you're wired, but for me, if I see injustice or something that's unfair or, you see the potential in somebody, you start looking around, you're like, is anyone else going to say anything? Because if not, I'm
Yeah.
going to say something. I'm really getting hot in my seat right now to say something. And if
Yeah.
that gives somebody else help to find their voice too, but we had to be in positions where we had to find our voice, and we survived, and now we can do that for
Yeah.
other people too. It's like if I'm here for it if somebody needs a little hand holding it to get their voice heard as well.
Yes. Yes. So we have a lot of in common in terms of what brings us great joy.
Yeah, yeah. And I also want to know, what are you doing right now other than the volunteering? Are you doing anything that's creative or relaxing, or it's just, kind of an indulgence of yourself that you are or for yourself that you're doing to unplug from the job and the work and the ask and all of that?
So two other passions is I love gardening. Catherine, I don't know, you've been to my place, right?
I have.
Where I live. Well, we have a rooftop deck, and I love, in the summer, you will find my deck just a haven. It's like it's an oasis with gorgeous flowers
Oh,
from one end of our outdoor patio to the next. So gardening, and I deliberately took up golf because I'm not. My whole life, I knew I was never an athlete. I was never someone anyone wanted me on their team, and I love taking up something where I'm overcoming this fear and negative messages. And so golf is just another pure, absolute joy.
oh, I love that you're saying that, because you're not saying it's a struggle and you feel like you just want to conquer it. You're actually loving it, which is fantastic.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I am no way good. And, but I know the politics of how to keep up and just make it joyous.
Oh yeah, well, it's a beautiful walk to start with. Usually the greens are always well
Yeah.
kept, and you're knocking
Yeah.
the ball around. Do you not now?
Yeah.
So do you go out by yourself so you can just learn the game better, or do you have a gang of women that you take out?
Well, I only have one woman, and then on my bucket list is to join. I have to, I have to find a golf league that's non-competitive, which is really hard to do because people and the thing is if anyone's competitive, they'll feel really good with me because I'm not competitive. I just love it.
You'll make them
I
look
like,
fabulous.
yeah, yeah. So, and then Catherine, I started writing, and I
Yes.
have this book
Let's talk about
almost
that a
done.
little bit.
Oh, well, have you started writing your book too?
I have, and it's a little bit about this philosophy, this podcast, and a little bit of my story. So yeah, I need to kind of uh, narrow that focus down a little because what right now I just have a lot of words on a bunch of pages, and I got to kind of get it organized.
Yeah,
But yours is closer, so let's talk about that.
yeah. So golf, art, writing, what they all three have in common is, hey, I don't really know what I'm doing. Okay, here's the deal, and anyone listening to this will relate to this, and it even applies in business. Of in the back of my mind, and I have to like shake that out of my head. In the back of my mind is, oh, you're not good enough. You're not good enough, and that is a destabilizer, and it's a barrier.
Mm-hmm.
And I had that with my book, but unfortunately, I have an editor, and if you need the name of an editor, I'm happy to share it.
Okay.
But she keeps saying everyone has an individual story, and no story is like yours. And because of that, every story is special.
I love that.
So I started the book over a year ago. It's in next to the final draft. So Catherine, I golf, art, and writing. I keep having this inner voice saying, "Don't listen. Don't give any attention to that negative voice because you have that negative voice and it derails you in
Oh
everything
yeah.
you do."
And everybody
It,
does have it. So I don't want people to think, oh, it's just me. Everybody has that voice. And what I've been learning about the brain and things like that is that uh, that's put in place to protect you sometimes. And we can't
yeah.
always listen to it for everything. But sometimes it just is there to just say, you know what, be careful, be careful. Um, but it doesn't have to rule your entire conversation in your head. But we all have it, and just understand. You might have just talk back to this person and say, you know what, I know I'm not great at it, but I'm going to be, or I know I'm not great at it, but I love it anyway. You know, like you were talking about painting and stuff like that. It's like I might not be the next Picasso, I might never sell another thing, but you know, I love doing it, and this is my outlet.
I think what you just said is the golden nugget of this whole podcast.
You know?
And and I just want to share the story of this woman I randomly met at an event. This was a woman who was very successful in Wall Street. Then she got married and had kids, and she decided to take up painting. And now she's in museums and she has art galleries carrying her work. And I said, help me understand this. How did you get from Wall Street to being a full-time painter in galleries, in museums? And she said, one transferable skill, and that is the gift of sales. Because on Wall Street, you pick up that phone and you get no's, 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 no's. And Catherine, I still do cold calls, and I still have people saying, I don't really want to talk to you. I don't need you, blah, blah. But what I found fascinating about her story is that she is living her life with passion and she's making lots of money and
Mm-hmm.
she's just using a transferable skill, but she doesn't have these negative voices. But getting back to childhood, what she told me is she grew up in a really dysfunctional, painful home that was poor. She had an alcoholic, abusive father, but her happy place was her painting.
There we go.
So people listening to this podcast, if they're trying to find, oh, what is my passion? I hope that they take away that look at the highlights of your childhood, early adolescence, or different parts of your life, and try to narrow in on what did you do that was joyous.
Yes.
And how
Yeah.
does that translate into what you could be doing now?
Right. And just start a little at a time. I mean, you don't have to necessarily say, well, now I'm an artist and I'm going to buy all the paints and things.
Yeah.
Start doodling
Yeah.
during meetings
Yes.
and see how you feel about that. And then you can kind of slowly ease into it because maybe that'll be enough or maybe you'll want more. But yeah, I encourage everybody to go down that path because life is not about work. We give 40 hours a week to it. That's plenty.
Yeah.
Don't think like it's going to be a game changer. But what I like too about talking about this in business as well is if you do take that time to paint, to draw, to work in the garden or something like that, that's sometimes when the best ideas come. That's where the business growth.
Yes.
And I really think that that's been a key to a lot of the people that I've been talking to on the podcast is that they grant themselves that gift of doing something else that they're happy about. And then they can kind of come in like,
Yes.
like a crazy person. I got the idea. I'm refreshed. I know what we're going to do. And the creative problem
Right.
solving becomes a lot easier.
Yes. Speaking of which, that reminds me of a documentary I saw on the Wright brothers.
Oh,
Did you
okay.
ever see that? So they were the Wright brothers. I don't know which one. They were struggling with a design idea over and over and over and over, and they could not get the plane to take off. And
Mm-hmm.
one day, the two brothers were talking, and one of them was playing with a matchbox, the old-fashioned big cardboard matchboxes.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And as he's twisting it around in his hand, just having a non-work discussion, suddenly the answer came with how he twisted the matchbox because that gave him the understanding of what you need to do to the wing of the plane to get it to soar.
Perfect.
And
That's
he
perfect.
wasn't working.
Nope.
Yeah.
So that's a
Yeah.
great example of how it all works. And we really kind of deserve that too. I mean, we've gone through a lot in the last few years, and people do every day. I mean, life is life. So, just grant yourself that
Life is
time.
struggle.
It
Life is
is.
struggle.
So grant
Yeah.
yourself that time to, that's what makes us human are those creative things and those fun things and
Yes.
all of that sort of stuff. So yeah, let's do more of that.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, then we're in agreement then.
We are.
Well, Mary, you're one of my very favorite people. I appreciate your time. I
Same.
know you're a very, very busy person. I cannot wait for your book to come out because I will definitely mention it on all of my social media when it does and buy a copy myself. And I just could not be more grateful for you to not only being in my life, but for doing this podcast. Thank you so much.
Catherine, it's mutual. And my greatest hope is just one person gets something out of this conversation. Yay. We've
Absolutely.
affected one
Absolutely.
life. We've affected
Exactly.
one life positively. But it was a joy,
Exactly.
and this was the highlight of my day. And by the
Oh,
way, is
thank
that
you.
one of your paintings behind you?
It is. It is.
I love the colors.
Oh, thank
Is that
you.
is that abstract?
Yes. Yes, it is.
Wonderful. Well,
Oh,
Catherine, a joy.
oh, thank you so much.
All right, take care.
Oh, don't hang up yet.
Oh,